In 5 minutes, BBC Two again takes the Hong Kong beat. First, the news on 2 with John Edmonds. It's 11 o'clock.
Polish strike leader Lech Wałęsa is carried shoulder high by jubilant shipyard workers after signing an agreement which gives the workers their main demands. The agreement, signed in the Baltic ports of Szczecin and Gdansk, was approved within a few hours by the Polish Communist Party's Central Committee meeting in Warsaw. It gives the strikers the right to free trade unions and strike pay. And there are other proposals for curbing censorship and giving the church wider access to the media. But one report from Gdansk tonight says the workers won't hold further talks until the authorities have released people detained during the crisis. The government's chief negotiator, Deputy Prime Minister Mr. Jagielski, initialed the agreement in Gdansk, then went back to Warsaw to have the terms approved. Michael Sullivan was in Gdansk.
There was to be no weekend breather for the negotiators, and the exhausted strikers' leader Wałęsa showed no sign this morning that his agreement was near. Neither had the government negotiator, Mr. Jagielski, any hint on his expressionless face of the prize he carried in his briefcase for the strikers. His government had tried to isolate them, but they had a firm hold on two precious weapons, their own high degree of organization and the presence of scores of foreign journalists whose lines of communication with the outside world had been guaranteed as part of the negotiation. So Mr. Jagielski's long speech, outlining the government's package of agreements and assuring the workers of their value and purpose, was relayed to the shipyard workers listening outside. They listened intently, as they have through the days of negotiation, and greeted the good news that came to them over the loudspeakers with polite applause. Mr. Jagielski emerged from his task of listing an array of concessions unprecedented in the Eastern Bloc with his face still expressionless, but pausing to accept a proffered set of photographs of himself at earlier negotiations. As his coach left the yard, his team courteously acknowledged the workers' quiet salutes. Wałęsa's reception was far more lively. His helpers pushed a path for him through the waiting crowd, which bore him shoulder high to the shipyard gates to deliver what was an unmistakable victory speech, but still expressing the caution that there were things to be cleared up and that calm and patience should still prevail.
The very last thing to be felt here at the Lenin shipyard has been any atmosphere of stalemate, for with the Russians looking over the Polish government's shoulder, every hour that the strike went by without agreement brought the tension higher, both here and in Warsaw. And even now, among the jubilant workers here, are the sounds of bitter, cynical men who say, we'll believe all those promises when we see them kept.
In Szczecin, a similar signing took place to a background of applause from shipyard workers. They've now been granted freedoms never before allowed in a communist country as the price for ending a situation which has become out of the Polish government's control. In Madrid tonight, NATO Secretary-General Joseph Luntz told newsmen he didn't think there would be any Soviet intervention in Poland. But if there was, he said, the Western Alliance couldn't get involved as the NATO Charter wouldn't permit it. Reports from the island of Espiritu Santo in the South Pacific say the son of rebel leader Jimmy Stevens has been killed in a clash with troops from Papua New Guinea. It's said he was firing a submachine gun from a lorry, trying to crash through a roadblock, when the troops threw a hand grenade. The government of Vanuatu, formerly the New Hebrides, says morale among the rebels of Espiritu Santo is very low, and they've indicated their wish to surrender. One report says Jimmy Stevens has already given himself up following the death of his son, but this has not been confirmed. In Northern Ireland, a policeman was shot and seriously wounded while he was manning a checkpoint on the border at Clady in County Tyrone. It's thought the shots came from a passing car. They hit the policeman in the chest and arm. The IRA has claimed responsibility. In mid-Wales, the campaign to prevent the underground dumping of nuclear waste gathered more public support today at Machynlleth when thousands of demonstrators took part in a protest rally. Elvin Thomas reports.
The former Archdruid, Dr. Geraint Bowen, opening the rally, which featured brass bands, folk groups and a parade to Owain Glyndwr's ancient Welsh Parliament House at Machynlleth. Paul Wesley from the anti-nuclear group Madryn talked of the people's determination to oppose nuclear dumping in the area.
The majority of the population is saying that there is no way in which we will have nuclear waste here at all. It just isn't safe. We know it's not safe, and scientists agreed it's not safe. It's just the government that's insisting on going ahead with the program. We refuse to accept it.
The government says no decision has been taken to use the area to store highly radioactive waste. But that doesn't impress the protesters, and among them was film star Julie Christie, who lives in the area under threat. Other actors at the rally put on a play which said clearly there was no welcome in the Welsh hillsides for radioactive waste.
The yacht, the France 3, which defeated the British entry Lionheart in the America's Cup, has lost the first race in the final. She was beaten by the yacht Australia by more than 2 minutes in the first of the best-of-7 race series. A 73-year-old Ketch, returning to a civic reception at the Somerset shipyard where she was built, found the journey far from plain sailing. The 90-ton vessel ran aground at Cummich, not far from Bridgewater, her ultimate destination. Villagers climbed on board to weigh down her stern, hoping the old ship would drift off. But eventually, a dredger succeeded where small tugs had failed, and she completed her homeward voyage.
And now the weather. Rain over eastern parts of England will clear away this evening, and most of the country will then have a dry night with some patchy fog in the northwest. Tomorrow will be dry with some sunshine, but near the east coast it will feel rather cool with a northwesterly breeze. In Northern Ireland it will become cloudier with a little rain during the afternoon, and this will then spread to some other northwestern parts later. Our temperatures up to 23 degrees centigrade, 73 degrees Fahrenheit generally, but nearer to 16 to 18 degrees centigrade, that's the low 60s Fahrenheit near the east coast. And that's the forecast.